Since its launch in November 2015, Fresh as the Word has been a documentation of sorts for me, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, as I journey through my love of music and pop culture, as well as using this platform to share my growth on topics important to me, which includes topics involving women's rights, people of color, and the LGBT community through the artistic lens of pop culture. As an ever-evolving podcast, I'm going back to my roots, focusing more on the music artists I'm passionate about from the past and present. From the classic hip-hop artists I grew up on, to the new faces of dance. And from the metal bands I've long appreciated, to the indie alternative artists stealing my heart. Fresh as the Word aims to tell the stories of those who need their contributions to music known, while also exposing my audience to the next artist to watch out for. Sometimes before they blow up.
Fresh is the word.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, and the guest for this episode is Frankie Mish, drummer of the Grand Rapids, Michigan-based metalcore band WAKER, who just released their new album, Alias, on July 23rd, 2021 via UNFD. During our chat, we go through a track-by-track breakdown of the album, and Frankie explains all the weird and interesting themes and influences that went into the creation of Alias. So, without further ado, let's get into this interview with Frankie Mish, drummer of the Grand Rapids-based metalcore band WAKER. And now a brief word from our sponsor. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel seeks to bring original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. They also provide an array of services. In the world of wrestling, where there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all of their tees in-house. If you would like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, even Zubaz, then drop them a line. Go to 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20, the letter X, the number 20, apparel.com. Alright, welcome back. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And what we're talking about today is the Grand Rapids-based metal band WAKER and their 2021 album Alias. And I have with me the drummer of the band, Frankie Mish. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. I first heard of WAKER on the previous album, Don't Look at the Moon, and that came out in 2018. And I was like, "Yo, this band's pretty fresh. They're from Michigan, from Grand Rapids." And I was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna keep my ear out on them." But I got this new album. It sounds like really dope, man. So like, I definitely wanted to cover it on this podcast.
Yeah. Dude, thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited with we're stoked on what we've done with this album. Like it's definitely some of the best work we've all done as a group since adding new people and getting everything together.
Right. Kind of, before we talk about the new album, let's just go back a little bit. How did WAKER start? Where were you guys at in your lives, and how did this band happen?
Yeah, so it started off as a three-piece, just me and the vocalist and a guitarist, and me, Hunter, our vocalist. He and I were talking in my parents' basement about like band names and like what we would name it and blah blah blah. And this was like, I was 13, 14 at the time or something, and we were talking about like our experiences with sleeping and insomnia and sleep paralysis and all this, and we were like, WAKER is a kind of a cool name. Like, it's different from Walker because that's already taken by like hundreds of bands.
Right.
It's different enough, and it feels kind of like a cool name, like brandable, that kind of thing. So we just kind of ran with it. We were like, we both have sleep related experiences, and after creating the name and talking to all these people and everything, it's pretty obvious that other people have very strong relations to sleep. Like people constantly talk about like how Don't Look at the Moon was a great like it encapsulated their experiences with sleep paralysis and like how it feels to be like sleep deprived, or I don't know, just it's cool that other people have that kind of experience that we can connect with, not necessarily on like a sympathetic note, but just enough to have something that people want to look more into and like feel a connection to. That's always fun.
Yeah, that's kind of a different, thing to like tie to a band, like, and the crazy thing is like the funny thing is that like you can kind of go so many different places with that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you guys had your first EP was Lost in Dreams, and so you guys went right into it. How was it like, those early years of the band, putting together that EP?
Yeah, so when we were doing that, we were just kind of like looking for a direction. But if you listen to the album, it's kind of or the EP, it's kind of a mix of all the different sounds we kind of wanted to go for across like all our tastes, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was written when I was pretty young. I was like 15, 16 at the time when we wrote that album. So it definitely showed a bit more I kind of like to say hopefulness, like in like what directions we could go, like just to kind of show that we have more in our pocket than just heavy riffs and like beat down stuff.
Yeah, you're just kind of playing around with a lot of things,
Yeah, exactly. Like Lost in Dreams, the title track was pretty like big, epic, chorusy kind of song. You've got like Paranoia, which was just like riff salad, like heavy all the time. Like Sun Cult was just like the beat down, ridiculous, over the top, low tuned songs. So yeah, I think it was kind of nice because in a sense we were kind of lost. Like we were just kind of like looking for a direction for the band. And I think that's why we chose that name, is because it felt like the right direction to go for a fresh band just starting out, trying to find our feet, that kind of deal. And then extending from that into Don't Look at the Moon. I think that's where we kind of found our concept, like just the fact that we are going to be talking about these things like sleep and sleep paralysis and that kind of feel. More like, what's the word? Introspective kind of lyrics rather than just, heavy, angry, violent kind of stuff.
How did you link up with Stasik Recordings for that record?
Yeah, so our manager was in talks with Stasik for a while. We were actually talking to a couple labels, but when we were shopping that one around, it just felt like Stasik had a great team, and when we got in the call, we talked with their head guy, and we just meshed right away. It was pretty cool. So yeah, they were awesome guys, and we really liked working with them. It was pretty fun.
When you look back at Don't Look at the Moon, like where you're at right now, sort of, what's your feelings about that album, and what was your experience writing and recording that record?
Yeah, I think everybody in the band now, or most bands at least, have that moment of looking back at their old albums and going like, yeah, we could have done that better. Like there are things on that album that I definitely think if we took more time, if we like kind of like sat back and listened to the whole thing more, or like, I don't know, started putting things together earlier in the process rather than like waiting until everything was done and then putting it together. Otherwise, I think that album, without doing the stuff that we did, to like write it and search for the inspiration and everything, it wouldn't have been the same. So I definitely really like that album. I think it's definitely a good defining point in our band. Like the first big release, first LP is huge. But I think that this album, Alias, encapsulates us as a band and like where we want to go and how we want to sound more. We've been kind of like dubbing this, not to downplay it, because we love this album and it's our favorite work to date, but we like to think of this as like the transition album.
Yeah.
Like this kind of puts us in a place of like, hopefully from here we can go anywhere. That kind of deal.
Right. When did you start working on Alias? And you mentioned that there's been a lineup change.
Oh, it was a couple of years ago. Or,
okay.
Well, I guess it was a while back.
And,
okay. So we had a guitarist, Eric, and he played with us for a while. And Don't Look at the Moon. He was on that record and everything. He actually joined at the very end of recording Lost in Dreams, and his contribution on that EP was the tapping lead at the end of Lost in Dreams. But he joined, and then when we started picking up and touring and everything, he and our old bassist, both decided, we're just gonna like take a step back. Touring isn't exactly what we really want to do all the time right now. So they left, but Eric is still our photographer. He takes all our photos and he does all our art. Not to give a quick shout out, but Simulacra on Instagram, he does incredible art. Nice. And he works with us, and I've worked with him. I used to be on a marketing team with him, and we both learned photography and some design stuff together, and yeah, he's incredible. But yeah, and then we just kind of moved forward and found some new guys. Aaron, our bassist, was in another band in Detroit, over on your side of the state. Yep. And he came over on a fill-in tour, and then at the end of the fill-in tour, we were like, dude, we just click. Like, you're a great addition. Like, this works. And our guitarist, Jake, he joined the band from another band, Seraphim. We met him through that, and we started kind of like a Grand Rapids super group of like the guitarist of Hollow Front, guitarist of Seraphim. Our producer was the main like writer and everything. I was the drummer, and Jake was the vocalist. So through that, I kind of met Jake, and then we added him on as a guitarist. And yeah, it's been an incredible lineup so far. Like we've definitely enjoyed working with all these people and all the people that were in the band. It's great to have all those connections and have the team behind us.
What was sort of the first things that you did for Alias?
So yeah, our writing process is kind of chaotic. 2 of these songs we wrote. I want Skin and Melatonin we wrote immediately after, like a month after releasing Don't Look at the Moon. Well, actually before releasing Don't Look at the Moon. And then Skin we actually wrote about, I want to say, we wrote that before we started tracking Don't Look at the Moon. But it just didn't make it on the album because we didn't feel like it wasn't the time yet to do a song like that. And I think there were like 2 changes that we made ourselves before coming into the studio and like finalizing it. And then we had some other ideas, like the interlude track, Cold Moon, that was done. That was actually a full song, and we cut it down, but that was done while we were tracking Don't Look at the Moon. There were some other songs that were done around that time. And I think while we're working on albums is usually my best time to like hear what we're doing, see what we're doing, sit back and go, all right, what are we changing next time? Like, how are we making this better? How are we doing this better? Blah, blah, blah. And then not adding it to that album, just, keeping it for later.
Right, a little mental note being like,
yeah,
okay, this
exactly,
is cool for now,
exactly.
But like, yo, we can play around with this in the future.
Yes, yeah. And I have so many of those demos that will never work and we will never release. But like, yeah, it's still nice to do. It's nice to kind of give yourself like a checkpoint, kind of. Um, but yeah, so that album we started around last year, uh, right when everything started shutting down. Actually, um, we uh, we had a couple tours booked, and as soon as those canceled, we said, "All right, everyone has the time off. We were going to be gone for all these months, so uh, let's go in and just record an album in that time." And it was kind of nice. It worked out because we got to sit down and we had, I think we tracked and recorded that whole thing over the course of like 8 months or something. So it was like we had time to do stuff, go back and then redo it if we didn't like it, or fix little things, which is something that we didn't really have on Don't Look at the Moon. We had the luxury of time, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of nice. We definitely got to stew on things more.
For Alias, you linked up with Unified. They are a really incredible label. A lot of my favorite bands these days are on there. So they seem like they really foster like, creativity, experimentation, whatnot.
Yeah.
How'd you guys get linked up with Unified, and how has it been working with them?
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure on the first point of contact, I guess, but I know that our manager was in talks with them for a while, pretty early on last year, and then when we started writing the album, basically, and we sent a couple demos out and here and there to a few different people, and we talked to some people, but I think when we got in that first meeting with UNFD, it was like just talking to them and hearing their plan and hearing how they view art and everything. It was like I've always been kind of a voice of, I don't want a label like telling us what to do. I don't want to go in and like compromise our art in any way. But when we got after that call, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the match. Like, even if Sleepwaker doesn't work with them, I would love to work with them as people. They're just great. Like, yeah, I genuinely enjoy working with them a lot. Like, it's a huge step for us, and I am extremely excited.
Already, how do you feel like working with them can like sort of help grow those ideas that you already had in your head for the band?
Oh yeah, we've already had creative meetings, and we've got some cool ideas for stuff in the future, and I'm just talking through some of the concepts that they've pitched us and their methods of brainstorming, and then I guess like cutting down all the ideas that are like, all right, that takes too long, that's too much work. And just it's nice because me and the guitarist Jason, we're all kind of seat of our pants, flying off the wall, just do it creative people. And we kind of just jump into things and go, we're going to do it. Doesn't matter how long it takes. This is what I want to do, and this is like my vision, and we're going to do it. And sometimes that's not the best way to do things, but sometimes it usually ends up coming out awesome. And but they definitely have a really nice way of kind of hearing all our ideas, hearing everything we've got, and then going, all right, here's what's doable, here's what's feasible, here's how we can do this. Like, let's sit down and like make a game plan for each of these. And as soon as one hits a snag, like we'll just kind of like work through that. If it's not going to work, then we move on to the next thing. Like, it's nice to have kind of like a more creative organization of thoughts, which is really nice. Yeah, their network is great.
With Alias, there's this sort of theme about, like fake realities and how it ties into the culture these days. And you guys are kind of a band that is building this sound, this voice, these visuals to kind of be in front of you guys, because you guys kind of want to be like a step back. You don't want to be the center of attention necessarily.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about all that, this theme for the album and sort of like kind of the theme of the band.
Yeah, I mean, so it wasn't intentional at first, but the concepts of the album came up because I was reading um, "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," the Blade Runner novel, and I was like, this is like I love this kind of like introspective like writing and the kind of stuff that you can. It has a concept, but you can read it and interpret it in your own way.
Yeah.
Like Blade Runner. You got the is he a replicant? Is he not a replicant? That kind of like fight going on as you're watching the movie. It's something I've always tried to do in our lyrics, and I think in this one we definitely leaned into it pretty hard. That like fake reality kind of thing felt interesting because when we're talking about dreams and like dream logic and everything, it's obviously hard to get that across. Like we were watching, or I was watching old TV show from back in like I want to say the 80s. Either way, it's an old like paranormal kind of TV show, not X-Files, but another one. Can't remember the name at all right now. But I was watching that, and they talk about dream logic and everything. I was like, oh, okay, like this is super interesting, like the way that they portray it, and it's oh man, it's there's like a checkerboard room with a guy that's like talking backwards through the whole scene. Oh man, I can't remember the thing.
What?
It's like a murder mystery kind of show.
Oh,
But yeah, I was watching that and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I love it. It's a David Lynch TV show. So it's super interesting. I love the way that he like creates a world and like the when they dream, the main character dreams, he's like teleported into this different kind of dimension kind of feel, and it's like that's an interesting concept, like doing something like that through the music and kind of having it be this separate world that you're taken into, almost like what we did with Don't Look at the Moon, where like he falls asleep and he starts seeing like this demon, this creature, this thing, but let's take that into a different way. Let's not make it this like horror, creepy, dark kind of feel. Let's just make it something that everyone could experience, like we were talking about with sleep. So I definitely think this album has I would say more of a concept but less of a story than the last one.
Right.
And I'm really glad that Hunter and I could kind of like meet up and create lyrics that felt like cohesive within that theme.
Talk about the album cover artwork.
Oh yeah, so that was actually Eric took a photo of a friend of his, and it had like ash on her shoulder, and she had green hair, and he did the glowing face effect, and I was like, dude, like this is super nice, like this is cool. Can I work on a design with you on this? And then I made like a poster design or something, and we sat on it for like months, and it's actually on my I think it's on my old Instagram. But when it came time to put the album artwork together, I kind of sat back and like saw that and went, this is kind of cool. Like what if I just took this thing, made something new out of it, made something more of an album artwork, not like a poster that we're never going to use. And as it was coming together, I showed it to Eric, and he was like, dude, this is insanely sick. Like I love the texture and like all the little detail and stuff thrown in, and like I photoshopped all the cables together, and like yeah, like the little like connectors that you see at the very beginning, those are like I got a stock image of a lightsaber and like cut that out, and like there's little references in there. There's like synthetic veins is a very slim reference to Star Wars. That whole song is, but yeah. So like we just kind of like wanted to throw references in and kind of keep things looking thematic. Like the Matrix is a big thing. Star Wars isn't huge, but it's definitely in there. Blade Runner, like there's the fog and the ash on her shoulder.
Yeah.
It kind of made me feel like that, kind of like the ending scene of Blade Runner, where they're in that huge building and it's just being destroyed and shot up and everything. But yeah, I definitely wanted it to kind of encapsulate everything and have Easter eggs, because I think Sleepwaker does as a band, we do a pretty good job of throwing some Easter eggs in there.
That's fun.
And I gotta say, like it's nice to go on the Metalcore subreddit here and there and see all the people like finding all of them and like kind of connecting them and going, I don't know if this is right, but that's why I do it at this point. It's just to go on and see if anyone gets it. But it's nice to see people do.
At this point, let's go through the album, go track by track, and like just tell me something about each song.
Yeah,
what it's about, recording, whatever. So first off is the title track of the album, Alias.
Yeah. So this one is pretty much this one is actually pretty obvious what we kind of like wrote it about. If you listen to the very end, the big build up, there's a sample from Ghost in the Shell, the very end of that film. And it's the puppet master talking to the main character about what it means to be alive and what it means to be like a living thing, basically, like to grow and change and create more. And like he's basically asking the main character to like die with him and create like a child kind of out of their like AI. And I just thought it was an interesting way to kind of introduce an album like this, bringing in concepts of Ghost in the Shell, the 1990s movie specifically. So yeah, I think that's just kind of the little tidbit for that one. There's like little things. The drum pattern in the beginning, not verse, I guess, pre-chorus kind of thing, is actually inspired by Straight from the Path, which is another like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
It's a strong variation of one of their songs on Internal Atomics, but yeah, I decided to kind of throw it in there because I really loved playing it when I went through the album. But
nice.
Yeah.
The next song is Skin.
Skin. So this is, I mean, someone actually pointed it out. This is actually Blade Runner 2049. In that movie, there's the baseline test where the Ryan Reynolds character is not Ryan Reynolds. Jake Gyllenhaal's character is sitting down and taking a test to see if he's like under control, basically, by this nameless government kind of thing. And he sits down and like repeats all these words, and they say like blood black nothingness. Do you know how to feel? Like cells interlinked, and he has to like repeat all these things. I was like, that's a really cool concept for lyrics. I thought that'd be really cool to kind of repeat and go back and forth. And we ended up scrapping that one, but we kept all the lyrics from the baseline test. And we've had some people point it out, and it's nice to see that people are getting it together. Because yeah, that whole song is pretty much a Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 reference.
Nice.
Yeah.
Next song is Strangers.
Strangers. So this one was written mostly by our vocalist Hunter, but the song itself is it's about two people who come together, and it's almost kind of like Ghost in the Shell's concept of two people come together, they don't mix, but there's like something is left from the relationship. The two people, by the end of the relationship, they're changed in some way. They're new people. They've like created their own aliases, essentially. So like they might be the same names, they're the same like physical beings essentially, but like when they're done with the relationship, there's something changed. Like
Yeah.
they learned something, they came out of it. It's this is more of the I guess human personable side of the album. It's less what's the word, universal, like big huge concept kind of thing. It's more of this is more of a literal song for the album.
The next song is Cold Moon.
Cold Moon. This one is we actually did write this as a full song. We had the full thing done, and then we wrote Distance, and we were like, this is a better version of this song. So we took Cold Moon and kind of chopped it up and redid it a little bit, and maybe that'll make an appearance at some point. But this new one is kind of the final fleshed out, like this is the interlude of the song. And Hunter and I have always kind of liked having him perform all this, like be the main vocalist on all the songs except for the interludes, having me kind of create like the thematic thing and have him kind of like step back, almost like a narrator in this little part here, and then he is the main character expressing these characters' views, if that makes sense. Like he's like the vessel almost.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
The next song is Melatonin.
So Melatonin we wrote a long time ago, and this one is about it's going back to the whole like concepts of sleep and dreaming and everything. I used to take melatonin and got horrible dreams when I was a kid. Like every time I took it, I'd get nightmares and blah blah blah. So we kind of just decided to make it about like an internal struggle, kind of an addiction-y kind of song. How Bitter was. This was supposed to be like almost a part 2 to Bitter, just because of how it felt like we were reshaping the band's sound when we released that song, and kind of defining what we wanted to go for from then on. So releasing that, we were like, okay, this should just be kind of a follow-up to it, because Bitter was about struggling with like not necessarily a physical addiction, but also like a mental addiction of any kind, which I don't like, none of us have really fully experienced, but it's definitely touched us in certain ways, which is what drove us to write Bitter. So Melatonin was kind of like how we can maybe bring that back to ourselves, like writing it about dreams and writing it about like how it can affect your world and like, insomnia, that kind of deal. So it's more of a reference towards like Don't Look at the Moon and Lost in Dreams than anything else. It's like the new breaking point for the band.
The next song is Insomniac.
Insomniac was actually a demo I wrote a really long time ago, when I stayed up all night for like 2 days straight. And I like wrote this instrumental and was like, you know what? I'm just going to record some vocals and see how it goes. And then I put it out on my SoundCloud. And then we were recording the album. We were like, some of the guys were like, we should have like a breathing on this album, a heavy song that's just hardcore, straight to the point, like Broken Teeth on Don't Look at the Moon. And this was just kind of it. I showed it to them on my SoundCloud, and they were like, we're not changing the lyrics. We're not changing anything. We're just going to go and re-record this with Hunter on the vocals. And we had our guitarist Jason do like some little screams here and there, like the backing stuff and everything. And I really like how that one came out. Usually that's not my favorite style, like just the straight in your face, like go heavy type thing. That's not what I usually envision for Sleepwaker, but live it's gonna be insanely fun.
The next song is 110 Minutes.
So 110 Minutes, the name, it's the average length of a REM cycle. So rapid eye movement when you're asleep. This song is a follow-up to Relief on Don't Look at the Moon. So comparatively, Relief is about him like going through the loss and everything. This is kind of a prequel, I guess, actually. This one is about him seeing his mother before our main character in this thing. This is about him seeing his mother before she has this like tragic accident, essentially, and kind of seeing the premonition and not being able to stop it. It's kind of like a not being able to stop fate kind of deal. Like it's he sees it happening and he can't stop it. That's kind of the concept. That song was one of the ones written mostly by Hunter on this album.
The next song is Serenity.
Serenity was this one was also written by Hunter. This one had just we wanted something that was different on the album. We wanted something that was like new feeling, and kind of like a different take on the sound that we'd been working on through that whole album. So when we wrote it, it was actually like a completely different song. We got into the studio and we were working with our producer Lee, and we just kind of like went back to the drawing board on it and kept a lot of the same sounds and riffs and concepts, but just reformatted them into the song that you hear now. And it's definitely a better song for it. But it was a lot of fun to write. It was definitely one of the more challenging ones to get through because it was so much like chopping something up, moving it over here, moving it back over here, moving it over here, recording something new, scrapping that. Yeah. But that was probably the most experimental one on the album. And it's a very interesting song, and I'm glad it turned out the way it did.
The next song is Synthetic Veins.
Synthetic Veins is the more Star Wars referenced one. So this is very, very in the back, because when I came up with the idea, I was like, we got to try and find a way to write a song about Star Wars and not make it cheesy and really dumb. Because
that's really easy to do, man.
Yeah, exactly. so this song is kind of like it takes references from these things, but it's basically the start of the song is the tragedy of Darth Plagueis in the third movie. He mentions it and how he like killed him in his sleep. Darth Sidious kills him in his sleep. So the first lines of the song, something Parasite, never sleep to stay alive. That's the line. And that's kind of just like, this is about Darth Sidious like learning from Darth Plagueis and just leeching all of the information he's got about eternal life and whatever through the Force, and then when he falls asleep, killing him. And then from that line, we kind of skip immediately to Anakin's story and how like Anakin's growing up and kind of like falling in love with Padme and everything. And then when you get to the chorus, that's kind of, he's already turned into Darth Vader, and he's going through the pain of replacing his like body parts and like replacing his like blood with this synthetic blood and synthetic veins. And then he's also suffering with like the loss of Padme. And throughout the song, we kind of have that. And then we kind of took liberties with this one, but we kind of like to think that the "Do You Dream" part of the song is Padme kind of reaching out and saying like, do you ever think of me? Are you still human? Like, is Anakin still there? Like, are you a new person?
And the final song on the record is Distance.
So Distance was a tag team by Hunter and I. That one was mostly about his father or his grandfather, who passed as we were writing the album. um, and he passed from dementia. So we had some lyrics worked up, and then some of them fit, some of them didn't. So Hunter just kind of took what we had and reformatted it to and added new parts and everything to fit the story that he wanted to tell about his troubles through that. And so this one, it kind of does kind of break away from the theme, but I think it was important for Hunter to, have some expression and work through this trial. But
it's a great way to close the album.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also, it does. I mean, I did say it didn't necessarily fit, but the fact that it's handling loss and like trying to find yourself after the fact is definitely a concept of finding your alias and your identity. So I think without like huge trials in your life, you can't become who you are, which is, I guess, is definitely a huge theme throughout the album.
How did you guys go about sequencing this album?
I think, I don't know if any of the guys had any changes to it, but I kind of sat down in iTunes and just like up and down and up and
just
down,
kind of move it around.
It was definitely, we wanted Alias first, we wanted Distance last. That was, as soon as we wrote Alias, we were like, yeah, this is it, this is the start of the album. As soon as we wrote Distance and that ending, we were like, this is the end, because like it fades out on the track, which I'm not a huge fan of fade outs necessarily. I kind of like a song to have resolution, but that's kind of because we wanted to throw little like, again, kind of Easter eggs in live. So like live, we're working on some cool ideas for the ending of Distance, because obviously you can't fade out live. So we were like, okay, let's do something real interesting here.
And it kind of harbors back to the old point that you said before, where like that fade out kind of leads into the next album.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to view it that way, 100%. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, the transition album. I like that a lot. Yeah. And I think on as soon as we wrote that, the fade out for Distance, we kind of went through the album and we were like, okay, so Insomniac, I guess I'd have to see the list in front of me real quick. I'm gonna see if I can do that up. But yeah, having everything listed out, Alias with the start, it just kind of felt like thematically right to go into Skin, because it's obviously from the kind of, Ghost in the Shell feel to the Blade Runner feel, having that concept together, because they are two kind of like pop culture references. Yeah. I thought that'd be worthwhile. Strangers, I think this one we put in because we have the two lighter songs to start, and I felt that this album just needed that heavy hitter.
Strangers kicks ass. Like that's
thank you.
That's like, when you guys just kicked it into high gear.
Yeah,
like I noticed that. Like I really noticed that. I was like, I like the way this starts, but when Strangers hits, I'm like, whoa, yo.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of how we like to put our live set together. So I think that's kind of where that came from, was just having, like, sometimes you listen to a live set and you're like, okay, these two songs were good and they had energy and everything, but there wasn't something that was just like, I'm going to like mosh now. That's that song for sure. And then the end of Strangers, that very clean guitar lead with the added synth underneath it. We were like, okay, so this kind of feels like the calm down, and it feels like a great time to slip in Cold Moon for that like nice little interlude. Yeah. And then it starts and ends very melodically, and it has like a very dreamy kind of like reverbed out feel. So Melatonin, the start of that song, is this huge intro, fills out that gap, I think. So they were definitely the two that we wanted to link the most.
listening to you talk about all these songs, all the Easter eggs and everything, like there's so much like science fiction, so much science, like so much thing in this band, and like usually for a band like that, like with all that, it could come out really nerdy. But you guys look and sound like a really cool metalcore band, you know? Like if you were to look at you guys, you're like, okay, what are these dipshits talking about, you know? They might be like talking about some stupid shit, you know? But then you actually like dig into it and you're like, whoa, all right, there's a lot of meaning behind this band. How did you guys like not make it corny?
Uh, I think that was pretty much just, I mean, being the Star Wars kid at school and everything, and like the kid that sat at like the nerdy table. I was kind of like, all right, well, this was definitely not the image I want for my band. And
Yeah, you had time to balance that out, man.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like now
think,
Star Wars is cool and there's so many like cool things
yeah.
you can dress in Star Wars stuff that looks cool, but back in the day, like you had to balance
Yeah.
that out, man. How much of that you wanted to bring out and whatnot.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I was the I sat with a lot of the kids that liked anime too, so that was definitely like
oh
one of the
yeah.
big things. It's like now anime is popular and everything, but yeah, it was definitely a big point of teasing when I was younger.
But still,
Uh,
even today, if you bring all that stuff out, it can
it still
easily
feels like yeah.
a
Like I
metal
was
band
saying,
with a anime influence or Star Wars influence can easily be really cheesy.
yeah, absolutely. I think being a graphic designer myself, having that kind of like finger on the pulse of like trends and stuff like
Yeah.
that, it's helpful for sure. Being able to go like, okay, if we did this, like this would do well, or if we like did this wouldn't, blah blah blah. But also having a manager that's not as nerdy as us. I pitched him a lot of the stuff on the album, and like he was actually I told him about Synthetic Veins and like how it's going to be a Star Wars thing. He was like, "Don't do it, man. This is going to be cheesy. This is going to be whack. Not into it. Blah blah blah."
No, we're gonna
And
do it.
then
No, just no, no. Just,
yeah, exactly. I was like, no, trust me,
Just trust me.
It's going to be fine. Like
I'm gonna
it's
make a
not-
demo.
Yeah. It's not Star Wars. It's not like this like very cheesy basic thing. It's a well thought out like very like if I didn't say it was related to Star Wars, people would probably never realize.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like the goal. I think as long as you're not as long as you're watching something, reading something, and soaking in the true meaning or the theme or the concept behind it. I think that's the most important thing to make something not corny. Because if I go out there and I go, yeah, I wrote this song about Star Wars, it's like, well, okay, cool, but like this song is actually about someone who goes through a loss of a loved one,
Yeah.
and it changes them, and they like in this case they go through some physical trauma as well, and they're just stuck living in this
Yeah.
like different body, this different feeling, and they're like haunted by their loved one asking like, are you still human, like do you still love me, you've changed so much, like that kind of
Yeah, because if you think about it, like, you know, whether it's like Star Wars or anime or comic books or whatever, like if you really dig deep to like what those stories mean, yo, they're mad deep in everything, you know. It might seem corny from the, you know, from the surface, but yo, you'd be like, yo, these are mad deep stories, you know, and they, you know, they talk about everything. You know, it might be, you know, very coded, but like, you know, they talk about everything.
Yeah, and again, going back to what I was saying about like writing the song about Blade Runner, I think reading the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and hearing that, or realizing like, oh man, like that concept of you really don't know what's happening. Like there's inferences throughout this whole thing that's like, is he a replicant? Or yeah, is he a replicant? Like, is he actually a detective? Is he a human? Like that kind of feel. I think that's or I guess that's more in the movie, but that's definitely something I wanted from all this. And I think if you can feel like you're building a world, if you can feel like you're building something other than all these pop culture references, that's the big thing. If you're out there just 100% like, yeah, everything is about Star Wars. It can be I love this band, but Galactic Empire, like they're kind of like a cheeky kind of like fun reference. Like it's
Yeah.
not a serious band. It's like a cover band that's really fun, really cool, and awesome. But if they were to take themselves like really seriously, it might come off as kind of like that. Oh, okay, all right. I don't know. It's a little uh, extra, I guess.
Right. What do you hope your listeners, get out of this album? Like you said, you have fun, going on the Reddits and seeing people find the Easter eggs and stuff like that. But like, in all, what do you hope people get out of listening to Alias?
I guess I just kind of hope people connect with it in some way other than the music is cool. Like I want people to listen to it and at face value. I mean, if they enjoy it, hopefully they enjoy it at face value and not looking into it and not looking too deep. But if I want everyone to go in and like watch our videos or listen to a song and go, "This is cool," but I feel like there's something else here. Like I feel like there's more to the world that they've got that they aren't showing me, and then they go in and they realize like distance is actually a part two to melatonin melatonin and um, uh, relief, our song relief, or our music video specifically. So we've had the same character throughout all our videos, and the specifically the car crash in relief. If you look at the scene in distance where they're all sitting around in their living room, the photo of the woman who is in the car crash, his like stepmother or mother, who dies in that crash. Her photo it's my mom, but her photo is sitting on the table in that scene of his dad standing there having an episode of freezing in the living room. So yeah, I think hopefully people kind of connect those things. I mean, that's a very slim one. Like this is probably the only place that people can go to hear it unless we say it somewhere else. But yeah, I just hope that people listen to our stuff and realize that we put a lot of care and a lot of thought into everything we do and everything we're working towards. And eventually, hopefully, we do something huge and really cool that really connects it all together and makes everyone feel like it's its own world, essentially.
Any final thoughts on Alias?
I guess that's about it. Yeah, I'm really proud of the work we've done, and I am so honored that UNFD and everyone so far has realized the amount of work and thought and time and art I guess artistic expression we've put into this album across our whole team, not just us, but like our videographer and our producer and like every little tiny bit of this band and this album is like I would say thought out.
Nice. It's been great talking with you, Frankie.
Yeah, absolutely.
After learning so much about this album, I think I like it more now. It's so jam packed with little tidbits. Where can people go online to follow the band, get more information about the new album Alias?
Absolutely. We are at Sleepwaker Band on almost everything. Yes, all of our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a new album coming out, Alias, sorry about that. Alias is on UNFD's website. and you can go to 2400 to pre-order, depending on where you're located: U.S., Australia, EU. We do have an Empiricon store for people in Europe, and yeah, that's about it. Spotify, Apple Music, all the DSPs.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh is the Word podcast, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, and powered by Anchor at anchor.fm/Fresh is the Word. Fresh is the Word theme music provided by Steve O. You can find more of his productions at iamsteveo.bandcamp.com, and that's EYEAMSTEVEO.bandcamp.com. Fresh is the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh is the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/freshestheword. Follow Fresh is the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh is the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh is the Word. For more information about Fresh is the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshesthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.